Hey everybody, it's Brenda from Little Pro Education Group. I have to apologize. You always get the worst of me in terms of style and presentation. Still in the hospital with my mom. Thank everybody for their prayers, their positive thoughts. So in this way, she's doing much better, but it's been really arduous on myself and my family as we are her support. And we've basically been here around the clock. So at any rate, this is the top 5 reasons your family needs an educational consultant. Here we go. Reason number 1, education has changed drastically over the last 20 years. The United States is one of the most powerful nations in the world, but yet we rank very low in terms of our education, our productivity, our output of scholars. This is a global economy, and our biggest employer in the United States is the United States government. And guess what they do to find their top scientists, their top computer experts, their top everything? Many of them go outside the country and recruit the top people educated in other countries because we're just not producing as many top people as we can. And if you think about the middle and also the bottom in terms of the spectrum, we're still not on the level of other countries. So with the changes, the United States is hoping to produce more top quality educated people. An educational consultant can help parents and families and students understand the new strategies, why they are in place, and how your child can benefit. If your school is not using the new strategies, then you know that school is failing your student because they're not going to be able to produce content and skills at the same level as other kids who are in schools who are doing these new strategies. So get yourself an educational consultant so you can make sure that your child is prepared to compete in a world global market. Reason number 2, you should get an educational consultant. Just as much things have changed, there's a lot of things have remained the same. Now, for Little Pro Education Group, we really focus on the inner city because there is an achievement gap between people in the inner city or from the inner city and people in suburban districts. The scores, the grades, the graduation rate, the level of skill, the level of content that they're able to use to advance them to another level, there's a big drastic difference. So at Little Pro, we're focusing on the inner city so that we can get our kids in the inner city and kids who have migrated outside of the inner city to be able to get those skills and those contents in order to compete with other people. But because historically, the United States education system has discriminated against people who typically migrate to the inner city, immigrants, new immigrants, blacks, Latinos. Many of those cultural standards of discrimination still remain in our education today. So it's really important so that you get an education consultant so that that education consultant can help guide you through the pitfalls that can happen. There's a lot of great families out there with a lot of great kids, and those kids fall through the cracks. And in the inner city, falling through the cracks is absolutely dangerous. Becky can fall through the cracks and she could be okay because her father owns this company, her mother is a professional here, and they'll be able to help support her. But when Raheem falls through the cracks, the recidivism rate for prison, lower paid jobs, unemployment. For the inner city, it's a whole nother ballpark and category. So we have to make sure these kids are safe and they can navigate these historical pitfalls. Reason number 3, in some educational institutions, some students are targeted. Okay, so that may seem a little weird and may not sound right to some people because some people think of schools as a safe place. Education is the key, all those key things that we've heard throughout our lives. But in these educational institutions, you have people. And with these people, they have histories and they have biases. And sometimes their biases may impact your child, your family because they think a particular way about you. And just like I said before, there are certain groups who have historically been discriminated against in educational institutions. And so when your child transfers, that child's records transfer with him and her. When they read those records, they can get a picture, and it may not be a great picture about your child. And I will tell you, in my experience in teaching, administration will get the records and they will target a kid. I have no idea because I'm in the classroom. I'm not in the office. I'm not an administrator. That kid comes to my class and I have not one problem with that kid. Not one. I don't know him from Raekwon, from Jose, from Giuseppe. I don't know him from anybody else. All I know is that he's a kid who is to be educated in my class. And by me treating him equal like everybody else, he feels that difference and he's able to acclimate to the high standards and expectations that I have academically and behaviorally in my class. And I have no clue until things start to unravel and you start to see your students on the detention list, the suspension list, and then you start to talk to them, see what's going on, and then you hear bits and pieces when you're in and out the office. And security, when you're in the upper grades, whether it's middle school or whether it's high school, and they have security guards, they are given orders to follow. So think about what Raekwon is going to think when he's walking down the hall. He's not doing anything. And then people who are in uniform are following him. And so instead of education being a safety place, it is reiterating some of the sinister types of ideas that people have about some of these kids. And I will tell you that these kids can excel. So helping parents navigate education institutions when your child has a record, when your child has performed poorly in other schools, when you want them to have a fresh start. You can have an educational consultant, which I call a professional friend, with you and your family to help guide you and navigate when you are being targeted. It's extremely important that you do not go to the school, you do not cuss them out, because that feels good, because you know in many instances that you are correct, you know that your child is being targeted, you know that this person or that person is not telling the whole truth about a situation, and then you go in, you cuss them out, you feel a sense of relief, but nothing is resolved. And your child is going to still be targeted. Your family is still going to be targeted. So get yourself an educational consultant. Call us. Reason number 4. Get it, forehead? Okay. No forehead jokes. Reason number 4, you should get an educational consultant. In the inner city, and people who traditionally migrate from the inner city, there are typically lower expectations academically and behaviorally. They believe that, and when I say they, I'm talking about institutionalized educators, believe that they cannot achieve at the same rate as suburban kids, and they naturally have lower expectations of Maria, Jose, Ralph, and Betty. They just, and I can't explain it. It's just ingrained into some people's psyche that our kids cannot achieve. And so when they give you lower expectations, your educational consultant can help make sure that your child is on par with other children and have higher expectations. You always have to supplement what the kids are doing, especially if your child's school is not culturally responsive. And what I mean by culturally responsive is if their curriculum is not diverse, if the students do not see themselves in the center of the subject. Typically for Blacks, Latinos, people from the Middle East, people of the Islamic faith, people of the Jewish faith, various racial and ethnic groups are on the margins. difference. They'll insert things here and there and call it multiculturalism or diversity within the curriculum, but they're not front and center. They're not treated equally. Many of our kids it's being ingrained subconsciously that whites are superior to people of color. And so a lot of our kids don't perform as well because what's the use? I'm not as good as. So having an educational consultant can help guide you through those, and that's a very specific pitfall within education, whether or not it is that educational consultant meeting with the educators in your child's school to give them some tidbits on how to help not only your child, but this helps all children. Whether it's you have a parent-teacher conference and you need support during that parent-teacher conference, understanding some of the things that they're saying about your child, sometimes just having someone on your side helps a lot. Reason number 5, this is our last reason for our video today, even though there's more reasons, but reason number 5 is because your family deserves it. You are going to maximize your student's potential, and that student is going to kind of be an adult that's going to be a productive citizen, a productive member of your family that can help carry your family forward. Today, many parents are busy. Many parents are overwhelmed with the responsibilities of home, work. Many people, especially people of color, have to face and navigate the pitfalls in their job, and then they come home and they have little John's teacher calling, messages on the phone, and you just really cannot deal with it. Well, if you hire Little Pro Education Group, especially if you get a monthly package, you can route those calls to Little Pearl. And so when we filter that information from you, you don't have to hear the teacher's tone. You don't have to hear the disappointment. Some teachers just really do not like you or your child. You're going to hear it from your professional friend. And I'm going to word it in a way so that we can get things done and we can make a plan. So when you hear it, it's not going to be from a derogatory, negative space, or you may perceive it, even if that person is not doing it from that space, you may perceive it as such because you're just really overwhelmed, especially with more than one child. Okay? So, at any rate, get yourself an educational consultant. This is brand spanking new. Most educational consultants work for schools. I'm going to work for you. See you later.